Hi everyone, Get Any Sleep Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Taylor Swift album, Evermore. Another album from Taylor Swift in 2020, essentially another helping of the folky aesthetics that she delivered earlier this year on Folklore, which was a decent record from Taylor in my opinion, some bland songs and whacked out production here and there, but I still came away from this thing hopeful for Taylor's new direction and creative independence. Now, it's probably most accurate to categorize Evermore as a sister album, but even if Folklore didn't exist, the appeal and strengths of these tracks would still shine through. As Taylor is continuing to test her mettle as a songwriter in the traditional sense, which I guess you could make the case that she already did that during her country days, but now she's doing it with a level of maturity that only a 2020 Taylor could. And of course putting an indie edge on the whole thing with names like Aaron Dessner and Jack Antonoff still in the mix. Miraculously, even though Evermore features 15 more tracks, even another one with Bon Iver's Justin Vernon on vocals, Taylor creatively still hasn't painted herself in a corner. That's maybe the most impressive thing about this album, that we have another hour of material and yet Taylor is still pushing narrative and instrumental boundaries that weren't even on Folklore's radar. Now, there were only 2 songs on this thing that either struck me as being sort of drab or misshapen. One, "'Tis the Damn Season," whose mix is packed with, for some reason, these rumbling, overblown shots of bass that sop up all the space in the instrumental, don't really complement the song at all. I have no idea why they're here. They sound absolutely horrendous, and I love how the instrumental grows. It somehow makes less and less and less sense, especially as the snare pops in, creating literally no pace or groove for the entire thing. Then we have Coney Island featuring The National, which in my opinion is a total and utter snooze fest. For some weird reason, when listening to this, I'm reminded of another momentous clash of the underground and mainstream from way back when, Nick Cave and Kylie Minogue's Where the Wild Roses Grow. Imagine everything that makes that track interesting. The vocal performance, the lush instrumental, the daring concept. Strip all of that away and you're basically in the ballpark of this track. There were also a few cuts on the project that to me read as being a little bland or overproduced instrumentally. The song Gold Rush, for example, is so clean and pristine, it almost undermines the rustic aesthetics of the entire record. Then Ivy feels like I'm listening to a very general, hopeful, plucky folk instrumental meant for an advertisement packed with, I don't know, holiday sweaters and warm cookies. So yeah, there are a few duds here, but the rest of Evermore, in my opinion, is actually quite compelling. I love the pure and simple chords that fuel champagne problems, which play out this kind of ugly cry chick flick narrative that only Taylor could pull off this well. The pain juxtaposed against the privilege on this track. It's the first time I've heard a song that I've felt it was a truly Swiftian. There's even a lyric on the track where she's crestfallen. Crestfallen! Then the song Tolerate It, strangely enough, is one of 2 tracks here that is not only in 5/4 time, but subtly combines folk instrumentation with electronics. I don't know how we ended up with 2 tracks with these commonalities on the same Taylor Swift album, but they're both good. Tolerate It's curious and oddly timed pianos serve as a great tense foundation for Taylor's breathy lead vocals on the verses. Then I love the shimmering display it all blossoms into on the chorus with these gently pulsating beats. Some elegant and chilling background vocals too. You tolerate it. Then Closure, the other kind of folktronic track I was talking about, again, also in 5/4, and kicks off with this distorted cycling rhythmic loop that sounds like the intro to a Nine Inch Nails song. Throughout the instrumental, it's constantly sputtering in and out of frame against these tense chords and bass. Somehow it really adds to the emotional complications of the storytelling on the song too, as Taylor is singing, "I'm fine with my spite, I can feel you smoothing me over," And look, on this track, Taylor doesn't care about closure. She doesn't want to be smoothed. She doesn't want to be soothed. She wants to be jagged and noisy and bitter. No Body, No Crime, featuring the Hyam sisters, goes in more of a classic pop country direction, with a few opening vocal lines that seem oddly reminiscent of Wonderwall. It's a quality tune and instrumental, but the star of the show is the murder mystery infidelity story.
And I would have got away with it too if it wasn't for you meddling pop singers.
You think this song is about you?
Well, it ain't about you.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, I thought the song was catchy, dramatic, smart. We have yet another vibe change in the track list with the song Happiness that kicks off with these very spotlit lead vocals and faint organ chords. The whole thing almost sounds like the start of some kind of religious experience, and I suppose there is a kind of emotional metamorphosis and redemption going on in the song's lyrics, so that does kind of make sense. Taylor essentially reflects on transitioning out of a relationship, becoming okay with the good times and happy times and more positive pieces of that history, and looking forward to more happiness in the future. Plus the linear build to the instrumental and how just subtle and delicate and lush and layered it feels toward the end. It's almost a little post-rock. From here, I'll say that we go into a relatively strong finish for the LP. Long story short is pretty exciting in my view, thanks to its casual charisma, its propulsive beats, as well as its indie-tronic synths. It's like Taylor's channeling Bruce Springsteen and the Postal Service at the same time, as she passes on these perspectives about moving on past your haters, as well as just going with the flow of life's ups and downs. Then Marjorie is a pretty beautiful tribute to her grandmother, which I found lyrically enthralling. The personal and historical touchstones mentioned throughout the track are really moving. I was a little put off by the instrumental at first, given how twittering and layered and busy it was, but the more I listened to it, the more it felt less like a composition and more like a place, more like I was being trapped in the midst of all of these fragmented pieces of memory. Then Evermore, featuring Justin Vernon on vocals, I think is a killer closer. The simple presentation of vocals and pianos at the start, it is beautiful, it is pure, very stark, very bare. In a way, it reminds me a little bit of maybe the Mountain Goat's best studio releases over the years. But around the midpoint of the track, there is a very, very sudden shift in tempo and instrumentation. Justin Vernon vocally just flies in with those falsettos. Things get passionate, things get heavy, things get emotional. Taylor and Justin start trading vocal lines off, really kind of layering over each other at some points. And honestly, like, it's fireworks. It's total fireworks. The chemistry is off the charts. Plus, I thought the song's message of being able to move past emotional pain and traumatic events is kind of necessary and moving, and also a great way to tie up the themes of this record, the previous record. While, yeah, I did find there to be a few bland instrumentals and duds in the track list here, I still enjoyed this record quite a bit, maybe even a little bit more than Folklore. And not for reasons that are radically different than my reasons for enjoying much of that album. I just feel like this record, consistency-wise, inches it forward just a little bit. There may be some debate in the fan base over which one is better, but I prefer this one just a tad. Again, for its songwriting, for its production, for its storytelling, for its maturity. Once more, I'm just really impressed with the versatility stylistically and narratively that Taylor has shown across both of these records too. I'm feeling a light 7 on this one. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Taylor Swift, forever.